One of the really interesting aspects of this pandemic has been the way that it forced a very quick and rapid global shutdown, which really meant that public life, meaning workplace, what went on in schools, social life, everything that went outside of the home was now pushed into the home as people were forced into quarantine. And as people's public and private lives have clashed and merged, some really interesting developments have happened in terms of division of labor, as well as the gender division between the risks that people are exposed to. So on the one hand, we know that pushing all of these activities into the home and limiting people's activity out of the home resulted in pretty dramatic spikes in domestic violence rates all around the world. Another highly gendered impact has been the way that the shutdowns and people moving into their homes, or at least not venturing as far out of their homes, has had because of the already gendered division of labor. When the pandemic shut a lot of schools down, that has really impacted women's participation in public life. It's impacted the ability of women to continue whatever jobs they had outside of the home. It's impacted their ability to participate in civic activities or other public activities outside of the home because what's going on inside of the home is so consuming right now. So one of the divides that we're seeing as the impact of the pandemic plays out in international law is the difference in responses between countries that tend to be more authoritarian leaning and the difference in responses between countries who tend to be more democratic leaning, or at least have stronger democratic institutions at this time. So when we think about a global pandemic as something that affects whole populations or creates a public health crisis, one of the best ways that science tells us to respond is for people to work cooperatively to protect one another. So for example, by wearing masks to prevent other people from being exposed, as well as yourselves. And the leaders in the countries that have been most successful at containing the pandemic have been ones that really emphasize the value of cooperation between people and communities at this moment in time. They've also focused on transparency, and they've also focused on using science and evidence-based responses to the pandemic. And a lot of those values are more traditionally associated with women, although there's no reason that they have to be, but just have come to be more associated with women over time. But what we're also seeing is that a lot of those values are also reflected in countries with stronger democratic institutions, right? Because the stronger a country's democratic institutions, the more it's able to support equality between its citizens, whether that's in law, in a public health response, and is more likely to be able to support empowerment of groups that in other places are bearing the brunt of the impact. Although we're in the middle of this crisis with many grave and severe consequences, the different ways that people and nations are responding and the way that people are protesting unequal treatment, I think provides a lot of hope about what we might do after the pandemic or as we emerge from the pandemic. And if we can look around us and see the ways that democratic nations, for example, or democratic institutions have been helpful in fighting the pandemic, and if we can build on some of those examples, I still have a lot of hope for our future.